here. Justin, what's your window here?
I pretty much have until the hour, so
Okay.
it's like, and with a little leeway on the other side. But
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Let's go.
downstairs, I just cooked up some spam and scallops. Although that was awesome because I said scam and scallops, which is like a disease.
which is
I'm
coming
sorry.
soon to scamstuff.com.
You have scam and scallops. Okay, so I'm just
Scammeroni.
gonna bail on it. It'll be fine. We're all good. Let me tweet out. Hopefully, Neshcom appears to be in the chat. Bryce, if you can, take us up on diamondclub.tv so I could tweet out that we're tweetwallow in the B-ballow.
Do you realize how much we take for granted that we have people helping us do these?
Oh my God.
Dude, don't even get us started. Are you kidding me?
I mean, let's also just understand that, like, right now I'm talking on 42 down, 12 up speeds in an airport, while we're in 3 different points in the world and we're relying on a staff of like 5 unpaid people doing things for us. Like, this is where society had to come for us to be successes. Like, we languish in anonymity unless everybody else is that much better.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, whoever's listening, just put that up there. Do the thing. Whatever.
Boom.
It's like Elvis knows if he shouts loud enough from the bedroom, whatever he wants will arrive.
We'll see. Okay, theoretically,
Yeah,
I went
I'm
ahead
sorry,
and said...
Andrew, I couldn't hear you. I was too busy retweeting Brian's tweet from the front screen of my phone without unlocking it. What were you saying? Something about privilege?
God damn, the future's fucking rad! Okay, I'm ready when you guys are.
All right.
All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1, and...
Take it away, Justin.
Welcome, everybody, to the Weird Things podcast. My name's Justin Robert Young. Joining me, as always, Andrew Main.
Hello. Hey, Brian. How you doing?
God damn it. I was trying to cover for Brian. Brian,
I thought, what's funny is I was mock drinking and then I heard you cover for me, and I'm like, oh, I can actually drink. Hey, what's going on, Andrew?
Sorry, I'm just going to enjoy this beverage, guys.
man. Honey Badger don't care.
No, I don't. Honey Badger don't. Andrew don't care either. I wolfed down there's an awesome place to open up near me. It's a hot dog and hamburger place. There's like a chain of them. It's called Doghouse Dogs. It's incredible. And I wolfed down the Pig Lebowski.
The Pig Lebowski?
Dude, it looked awesome, by the way. Andrew, you need to tweet a picture, of what that hot dog was. We are getting no compensation from Doghouse Dogs, but it made me want one immediately.
So next time you're here, Doghouse Dogs, it's amazing. They've got it's a kielbasa sausage with barbecue sauce, coleslaw, and the bread they use is Hawaiian bread.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh my God, the Hawaiian bread. That's what they often use for like communion bread, right? In the Methodist churches?
Probably, pretty much sure that's true. Like if they did another Polynesian islands, I'd understand cannibalism. I'll eat anything on there. They have like their burgers and like I take a bite and I'm like, yep, perfection. So, but gentlemen, we're not here to talk about that.
No.
Hell no.
Listen, guys, we're good friends, right?
Sure.
You're best friends.
Yeah.
You're right.
BFFs.
We do anything for each other, right?
I mean, give or take. I mean, it's like I'm
Nope.
not gonna.
Sorry, Brian. Absolutely anything.
I noticed that one person was throwing out the qualifications there, Brian.
I mean, like I wouldn't discriminate against a minority just for you guys, but
Brian, we all know that's not true.
okay, all right, fine, I will.
We didn't say which one. Not a cool one.
Spare us your letters, listeners. We
Yeah,
haven't said
okay.
which minority. It's probably not yours.
Yeah.
No.
Nazis are a minority. Think
Exactly.
about that.
But by the way, real quick sidebar. This is kind of a weird thing scenario. I tweeted out today, how long do you guys think it's going to be before some cable network decides their next big action drama is a non-ironic, completely, no wink or a nod or anything, story of somebody enlisting in the Nazi army in World War II? And I got answers anywhere from it's already happened pointing to a miniseries that came out last year, or to within 18 months on the History Channel, to never. It will never happen because that's just too sore of a subject.
What are the benefits?
I mean, the benefits are it's a world that we're all horrified by, right?
No, I meant enlisting.
Oh, well, enlisting is like no, like that's just it. My point is like, what about a story about
They're
true
all
believers?
bad.
Like genuine bad guys. Like I would watch a Star Wars movie about a true believer in the Empire who's a bad
hold on.
guy.
You're saying somebody who's moving up a universally reviled syndicate, which makes their bones by killing other people.
It sounds
like The Sopranos.
Exactly. That's my point. Is we live
Like
in a world
ISIS?
where we watch The Sopranos, we watch The Wire, we watch Breaking Bad. We've seen all these shows. Why is nobody touching the third rail? Like the forbidden, the verboten.
Number one is. I mean, and we can go as deep or as shallow on this as we want, but like I think part of it is cultural relevancy, that we don't know exactly what that person would be, you know, and carving out that world could be interesting, but I think the justification is from an entertainment standpoint is it entertaining enough to get over the baggage that we're going to bring into it.
All I'm saying is we all hate the Nazis, which is what makes that element, that world, electrified, and it's been long enough that I'm surprised it hasn't happened already. I figure it's got to be within 5 to 10 years. 5 to 10 years tops, we're going to see a non-ironic Walter White style story of somebody who embraces and loves the Nazi world, join it, and
you know, there have been some.
It's a great brand for being hated.
So says Neshkom.
Did you ever see? I think it was Good with Viggo Mortensen.
No.
And that's the he plays. I think that's, if I'm not confusing my titles, he's a doctor that signed on early on to this sort of the Nazi program, was advocating this hygiene movement, which really was sort of the creeping start of where their eugenics, which then led to massive genocide. And the idea is it's scary because I think there's also a Kenneth Branagh movie that deals with the same subject. It was all along the way, there were these discussions they made where they said, well, we think, you know, is it okay to sterilize people who have birth defects so they don't, you know, promote those? You know, is it okay to isolate people who are sick from people who are well? And then they get this slippery slope where like, well, you know, gypsies have a lot of tuberculosis. And the next thing you know, you're killing people wholesale. And that's why some people react very, very frightened. You know, when we talk about terms like death panels and stuff like that, there is a history between this encroaching thing where you start from one thing and then you end up in another very, very scary place where you're killing people wholesale.
Here's how I think it could work as a ongoing TV drama. You know, The Shield was an extraordinary show in that the very first episode, the main character is damned from the beginning. Spoiler alert for the first episode. The first episode acts like this is a story of a team of 5 guys. The fourth guy, whose name is in the main credits and is established as like he's definitely part of the team, Vic Mackey turns and assassinates him in cold blood. Just kills him because he knows he's a rat. From the beginning, you know this guy is damned, and the next 5 seasons are this twisting, agonizing, emotional roller coaster of you kind of want him to get away, but you know he shouldn't, and so on and so on and so on. I could totally see something similar happening in the early Nazi days, where it's like, here's a character who you know is bad. He's a bad person. You watch him, you know, choke a man to death or whatever, and then enlist in the Nazi party. But then, much like The Shield, you watch him, you know, keep doing things that you kind of like and kind of support, but you don't want to support it because he's definitely the pinnacle of evil Nazism or whatever. I could totally see that working on AMC.
There are many different, and there are people who are more sympathetic. You take the story of Rommel, you know, and there's a lot of different ways. And that, you know, we've tried that to some extent. It's hard to say, like, to make kind of the anti-hero, but I think it's doable. I think I've heard talk of like Mother Night or some other stuff being reworked, and they're trying to do a miniseries, I think, of Man in the High Castle, which is the Philip K. Dick story, which is basically if the Nazis and the Japanese won, you So
Yes,
anyhow,
no. That's like happening. That's a multi-million-dollar thing that they're doing.
let me jump into our topic.
Go ahead.
So we would do anything for each other, right?
Yep.
Yeah, damn straight.
Let's say we're all hanging out, and Justin starts dancing around, climbing around. We're at a train station. Justin starts dancing around. He grabs some overhead wires. Next thing you know, he gets
Typical
electrocuted.
Justin. That's a good one, buddy. Keep
He gets
going.
electrocuted and falls to the ground. In the middle of this busy, dangerous train.
No, he's fine. He's fine. He does this all the time. Hang on, let me get over it.
Did you see this clip, Brian?
No.
Or Justin?
No.
Oh my.
Oh,
Gentlemen,
shoot. Somebody's about to send me a link.
you're going to see an awesome link here. Our chat room people already know where this is going. All right. So some monkeys are hanging out doing what monkeys do. One monkey grabs a high electric line, gets electrocuted.
By the way, that didn't rhyme. I feel like you are almost telling a children's story. Monkeys are hanging doing what monkeys do. One grabs an electric line and falls down in two.
Shocked the hell out of him. So what happens next? You'll never believe it.
All right, hold on. I'm copying your link. I gotta
right.
close this thing because this drives me nuts. I'm not a fan of the new Skype. All right, here we go.
Yeah, which is weird because we weren't really fans of the old Skype either.
All right, here we go. What is this?
That's not what it said. Yeah.
No, that's definitely not it. Okay, good. I was really confused.
By the way, I want to make like a Facebook video, like a year in review, and have it just be all horrible, tragic stuff and things like that.
You know
Oh
what?
yeah, like the insensitive Facebook algorithm stuff.
Yeah. I sent it via the Skype.
Yeah,
chat.
Unfortunately, like sometimes Mouse Beyond Without Borders has difficulty copying stuff from one computer to another.
All right, I can send an iMessage.
Send it or just email me or something. Email schwood@gmail.com. That'll be the best.
It might actually be
I'm
easiest to
sending
just say the name of the thing so we can search it.
Yeah, actually. Wow. Just bust that out, why don't you? What would happen if you were to tell me what to search for?
I want the reaction of you to see the headline.
Okay, all right. Well, it might be better. Right now. The best thing probably would be for you to post it in the chat, and then I could...
I don't keep the chat open when I'm doing the show.
What are you responsible?
Well, I mean, I think we've set this up enough. If you just Googled Monkey's Incredible Act... CNN.
Wait, is that true? Would that
That's
actually
the headline?
Yeah.
So
Wait, Monkey's Incredible Act?
Yeah.
All right, I kind of want to insist on looking for it that way. All right, here we go. I got the link, and it says here, and I'm calling it up.
And now I see
CNN.
why Andrew didn't want us to
Here's
see
something you don't
it.
see every day: a monkey, or kid you not, performing CPR. And,
What?
of course, it's calling him. This little monkey was unconscious after falling onto a train track and shocked by electrical
Here we are,
wiring
guys.
at the Kanpur station in
Brian,
India.
I'm watching.
His friend,
Oh my God!
sitting there, worked for 20 minutes to revive him. The monkey tossed his pal into water, shook, bit, and hit him, trying to get him to come to. It eventually worked because he started to show signs. Look at him trying to help him. That's so sweet.
Oh my God, that's so patronizing. Can you imagine like alien overlords coming down like, oh, look at this at a basketball game. A guy died, and look at him. He's trying to revive him. That's adorable.
But they do revive them.
Little monkey started to show signs of life, much to the delight of railway passengers who started to clap and cheer. How
And then ate 'em.
about that? CPR.
Okay.
He's biting his
hold on.
eye.
Wait a minute. All right. Let's just go ahead and draw a circle around what we consider to be CPR.
I'm pretty sure that if somebody got electrocuted and I were to start biting his eyebrows, nobody would say, oh, how adorable. Magician Brian Brushwood is attempting to perform CPR.
I'll just say this, and I don't know whether this is universal or maybe it was just like a South Florida thing when you grow up through middle schools and high school, because you're always around the beach and the pool, there like CPR training is a big thing, and they always try to push that. If in high school somebody paired me up And instead of going with the rules of sweeping the mouth and, 20 quick compressions with strong breaths, I started biting and humping the partner I had. I believe I would fail the CPR.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're confusing. CPR here stands for Capuchin primate resuscitation. It is
Good point.
totally.
They have a different anatomy, man. They have a little heart subpalpitation valve up in their eyebrow that you need to bite 3 times. Then you need to slap their butt, and then you need to give them the middle finger.
Guys, how many of you have ever used CPR to resuscitate somebody?
Never. By the way, CPR.
Okay, hold on. Could we also assume that if what that monkey did was throw the monkey in water and bite it, that the monkey might have revived without any different intervention from the other one?
Oh, so you know best about monkey medicine.
I'm just saying,
all right.
Maybe that could happen.
So, of 29,000, according to one study from the National Institute of Health government institution, 29,711 patients were included, 36% of whom received bystander CPR prior to the arrival of the rescue team. Among those 36%, how many? 72% of those were CPR from lay people, 28% were from professionals. What do you suppose the survival rate was of people who received CPR?
From either or from bystander?
Well, from that group, knowing that 72% were amateurs, amateur CPR guys, 28% were pros.
So of the amateurs, how many survived?
No. Of that aggregate group,
of
72%
everybody
being amateurs.
I mean,
yeah. So we're looking at about 20,000 people. 20,000 people getting CPR out of 30,000.
I wouldn't be shocked if it was low because you're giving it to everybody, right? Like even if they're just kind of lying there, probably already dead, you're gonna try to attempt CPR.
So okay, I'm gonna give you a clue. We're gonna do survival to 1 month. And by the way, that number, if you don't receive CPR, is 2.2%. 2.2% of people who did not receive CPR lasted a month. How many do you think lasted a month who did receive CPR?
I'm going to say 10%.
Andrew?
Sure.
4.9%.
Doubles your chance of survival.
That's true. That's true. I mean, it's like, look, I'm not saying don't give me CPR. I'm just saying, like, you go from 2.2 survival for doing nothing to 4.9% among those who got it from lay people. However, it is 9.2% among those who received bystander CPR from professionals. So it quadruples if you have an actual pro.
Man, if I'm in that situation, I'm gonna have to hit you with the Jim Carrey and Dumb and Dumber. So you're telling me I have a chance?
What is the right for primates?
Yeah,
right now, 100%, Brian. Given our data pool, apparently,
according to our data sample of one situation, yeah, fair enough.
We were told the monkey showed signs of life. We didn't quite see them.
he's got a slack face like a stroke situation. He rings a bell.
Mexican drug lord.
That's a brave monkey that we're laughing at. Shame on you, jerks.
I'm saying, I like people like, why didn't they help him? It's like train tracks and stuff where only monkeys fear to tread. Or
initially I'm like, oh, well, why didn't they help him? And it's like, oh, I don't know, because I wouldn't want to go in the middle of an electrified train track where a monkey that was trying to feverishly help
got electrocuted in front of me.
Well, and also two other monkeys were guarding over it.
Yeah.
Holy All right, cow. Gentlemen, new topic.
Yes, sir.
Now we've established that. Can you smell that?
Smells chupacabra-ish.
Smells like
maybe
like layover
parts.
parts.
Say no.
It smells gobblish. Gobblish? Is it gobblish?
Gobblish?
I'm talking about the smell of Mars.
Oh, dude, I hear that smells like barbecue. Have you read that? There's a Mental Floss article about what space smells like, and apparently, apparently it smells like barbecue, like the space stuff that accumulates on your astronaut outfit. When you get back to Earth, they smell it and they're like, it smells like barbecue.
Apparently, after you eat the barbecue, there's another smell that people say we picked up on Mars.
Wait. It can't be something new, right?
Well, you remember Curiosity?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Curiosity found elevated levels of methane.
Wait a minute. Methane, isn't that supposed to be the result of
Farts?
organic activity?
It could be the result of organic activity. Could be the result of some for the level of methane they found there would imply that there is some constant supply of methane on Mars, which tends to lead us to believe that it's from some sort of like on Earth. We believe that most or almost all of our hydrocarbons here were produced through biological process. And that's actually up for some sort of debate. There are some arguments too that some, not all, because like other places, there are hydrocarbons, other parts of the universe and stuff that we know didn't come from biological processes. And no reason to think that everything on Earth has to. But that's a totally different debate. We know most of the stuff we have, we pull the oil, all the stuff out of the ground, it came from biological process. And that's where our methane comes from. That's where the stuff is from. Mars has methane. Right? Mars has more methane than we expected. It could be from a non-biological process, or it could be a biological process in something that's continuously releasing it.
So, I mean, we're relatively sure, like there are liquid lakes of methane on Titan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're fairly certain that methane is non-biological in nature.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I mean, let's also just take this for what it is. Absolute definitive proof that the tremor worms are living on Mars.
Right.
Well, and the thing is, too,
you can't
is
see
that
them.
the levels
They're
of
crawling
methane
around.
on
Send Kevin
Mars
Bacon.
aren't continuous. They go up and they go down.
Wait, the lakes aren't continuous?
No, on Mars, the levels of methane. So
Okay.
that there's, when we measure the Martian atmosphere, there's methane here, now that goes down. So methane is apparently being released from something. It is a continuous process, but it ebbs and it flows.
Well, keep in mind that this is almost certainly, almost everything that we're seeing from Mars has been an indication that not of current life, but of an indicator of past life, right? We're fairly certain that everything that lived on Mars is pretty well dead and burned alive.
Are we,
cold.
Brian?
I mean, it seems to me like we are. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Because if we were looking for signs of life, we would be looking for methane levels that would rise and fall.
Oh shoot! So you're saying this is the indication of a swell of life coming and going, of an ebb and flow.
Well, just that it wouldn't be something that was settled, right? That the erratic nature of it is a pattern of it could be an indicator of life.
It is it is consistent with that.
All right.
So, quote
real quick, just from what we've heard so far, 5-year bet, $20 per person. Are you going to say within 5 years, if you're going to bet, will we find definitive proof of currently existing life on Mars or not?
5 years, no.
Justin?
I mean, life on Mars. Two countries had it as a TV show. It's an internationally renowned pop hit. Like, of course, we got definitive proof of life on Mars.
Right.
I don't know. I'm always gonna take the yes. Like, I mean, if the cost is $20 to live in a world where I'm the guy who says life on Mars might exist, and then that ticket comes in, like, yes. No, I would rather be that guy than the guy who sits on the other end of it and says 5 years has passed, and guess what? I won.
I'm going to say that the way these things tend to resolve themselves, that if we might become aware of some process that we don't know what to qualify it as. You take things like a prion. A prion is this, it's a malformed protein that causes mad cow disease, gets passed through the food supply, and keeps going on and on, wreaking havoc wherever it goes. It's not life in any conventional sense of the term. It's a protein. It's just a simple protein structure, but it has this effect. And we might find some simple, and there's things like nanobacteria, there are other processes on Earth we don't even understand and know how to classify them, that we might find some process that we could be like, well, maybe it's life, maybe it's not. It's you know, we're finding all these precursors to life that are lifelike but not quite living. So
Right.
I think it'd just be, we'll have like, more ambiguity.
So you're saying 5 years out, it will pretty much be in the same position we are right now, where we're like, well, I don't know.
Yep.
Do you think 5 years from now we will have seen the first sincere
Well,
efforts
well,
to
hold
terraform?
on, wait. Before we get to anything beyond that, let's look at what's different 5 years from now. You know, like where are we in terms of like more sophisticated probes on Mars? More, you know, are we closer to humans being on Mars? Are we more sophisticated at putting things around Mars, that we have a better idea of it? I think that's what you're betting on, is us having a, you know, better structure of looking at it.
Yeah, we have. I'm trying to remember, like, there's a couple like orbital observing projects and things like that. You know, a lot of it's looking through the data, but I don't think we'll get anything definitive within that time frame. I think we will maybe can look at the data a little bit better. I mean, we're still trying to figure out what the Viking probe sent us back.
Yeah.
We're still debating, you know, did that say this or did not say that, you know?
Man, I got to admit, sidebar here, and you could shut this down if you want, but I'm surprised that
All right.
I'm surprised that of this week, of our two Earth-like planets in our solar system, that you went with Mars. Because another news story came out about a proposed mission.
Whoa. Hold on. Is this Brian usurping point guard duties from Andrew?
I'm playing coy because here's the thing. I don't know. For all I know, like Andrew had already planned to talk about this, but this was the story that the moment I read it, I was like, oh, we got to talk the hell out of this on Weird Things.
Yeah, I mean, I had a better story. I'll go ahead and just jump into it. I'll explain the problem with it, why it's like it got more attention than it deserves.
Okay, and by the way, the story, as I understand it, is that what was proposed was a NASA internal proposal for how we might go and establish a permanent colony, not on Mars, but on Venus. And of course, the problem with Venus is, I don't know, the 450.
It rhymes with penis.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem. That and the fact that it has 450 degree sulfuric acid atmospheres. However, I believe its atmosphere is like 24 times the density of our own. So as a result, we could throw some Zeppelins down and throw a bunch of them, you know, linking up to a permanent floating base on the outskirts of Venus.
Yeah. You belong up here with us in the clouds.
That's thank you for joining us in the clouds. And so NASA released this video, and I thought it was a fairly slick video. You know, it's like they touted their previous missions to Venus, and they showed what it might look like for a pod to deploy down to the Venusian surface and then expand a giant Zeppelin with solar cells all around it. The benefits being that gravity would only be slightly less than Earth up at this level. They would be able to stay outside of the caustic, acid atmosphere, and they'd be able to develop enough of these Zeppelins, tie them all together, and have, no lie, a permanent installation floating around and examining Venus. I thought this was a clever, counterintuitive idea, but Andrew, being smarter than me...
Hold on. Before we get into Andrew accurately pointing this out, let's all understand what is universally understood to be known, that if you set a movie on a colony like this, it's an awesome way to kill a bad guy by kicking him into the acid cloud, right?
I mean, that's the thing, right? Is the whole time, all I could think of is I was like, one space bird pokes us, one meteorite punctures us, and we die burning alive in acid atmosphere.
So I'm not saying we're never going to do this. I mean, I'm all for terraforming Venus if we can figure out how to get the thing to rotate faster than, like, you know, a day lasts like 280 days, Earth days on there. So it's not a very nice place to want to live.
Just
and
constantly baking on one side,
yeah,
right?
Atmosphere aside. Here's the problem with this. Venus is very, very Earth-like in many, many ways, including its mass. So we've sent probes, we've dropped stuff, we could go send stuff there. There was the Venera probes, all this sort of stuff to Venus. We could get stuff in there. We could probably float stuff on the atmosphere. That's great. And they start talking about, oh, it's a great stepping stone to Mars. Mars has like 1/3 our gravity, which means we can put people on Mars and we can get them back off of Mars without having to have massive Saturn V sized rockets. If you put people in orbit or put people floating on the clouds of Venus, how are you getting them off there?
So it doesn't matter. Now, keep in mind also the flip side is that they have a 26 times or however much more dense atmosphere. So as a result, a helium Zeppelin would float so much higher than what we have right now. You're saying being that far away and having to reduce gravity wouldn't make it enough to easily get off?
People on ISS, still feel like they're it's the linear motion keeps them in orbit, but they have 90% of the pull of, they still experience 90% of the pull of Earth's gravity. That's 220 miles.
90%? Really?
Yeah. Earth's gravity well extends theoretically infinitely, but Earth's gravity well is strong enough to keep the moon in orbit, So you have to have a certain amount of velocity. So you might, Venus is going to maybe like 10% less of an escape velocity requirement to get off there. You're still going to need a massive multi-stage rocket that you're going to have to suspend from a balloon. And then these things will be solved eventually. I do not doubt that at all. But I'm saying is if we're talking Venus or Mars or, we know how to get off solid bodies.
I mean, can we just look at this as what it is? Like, this should end with NASA popping up and saying, yo, I'm NASA. Please rate, review, and subscribe my channel. And then a 1.5-minute bumper of NASA doing the cinnamon challenge and the ALS ice bucket challenge.
Now,
it's a great video. It's an interesting video for people who know something.
If it's robo blimps, all in. Yeah. 100% all in.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, like the whole idea though, the whole introduction of the very possibility that it's a viable solution to send any kind of permanent whatever in Venus was super exciting to me.
Ryan, we could do this on Saturn.
Well, what, you got a problem with Saturn? You want to do it on Saturn, bro?
We could, if you were floating on the surface of Saturn, of the surface of the layer, you would be experiencing close to Earth-like gravity.
Well, why are we going to Saturn, bro?
Still,
did you just call him Bo?
Actually, you might be able to. As long as you don't fall too deeply in there. So yeah, it's further out. But that's the thing. It's like we'll be able to figure out how to live crazy ways to live everywhere. I'm convinced of that. But when we say which do we go first? What step do we do next? We're launching an astronaut. Our American astronaut's going to try to spend a year in space. Which the Russians have done before. This guy's hold the record for longevity in space. And that's the first thing is like, how do we keep people alive long enough up there?
Yeah, and by the way, if you want a very hyper-realistic visualization of what all of these things would look like, we recommend Wanderers. Just type in Wanderers short film and you'll find it.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I would love these, if these are plans, just sitting around NASA, I think making them into cool little YouTube videos and paying another company to do a CGI rendering of it. I'd rather it be out in the public, gathering attention and curiosity than sitting in a file cabinet.
I want NASA filled with dreamers, and I want more of this stuff. As far as saying which comes first, do we do this before Mars? I will weigh in with my professional opinion as a former cruise ship magician and tell you, well, I think.
Well, as a cruise ship magician, I know a thing about floating out in no man's land.
But I will, and then we can debate these things, which is the goal. But I much rather, I like the new NASA that's not afraid to release photos of this is what a warp drive vehicle could look like if this math worked out.
This is the dreamer generation of NASA. This is the story-centric, narrative-focused, social media savvy generation of NASA, and in that regard, I absolutely applaud everything we've seen for the last year.
Absolutely. So I don't want to be there. I'll be like, well, let's try this thing before this thing. I think eventually that thing's cool, but whatever.
I like this version of NASA way better than the constantly bitching failed government program version of NASA, which Yes. I'm glad we're beyond that.
So. Next topic, gentlemen, unless we have a commercial break. Oh, let's pitch our Patreon. Why not?
Oh, dude, now that we're actually collecting on it, right? I believe, can we announce that we have brought on somebody to the patreon.com /
We haven't talked to him about it. He only sent an email.
You know what? Can we live announce that we've selected our official Weird Things producer?
Nor have we discussed how much we'd pay him.
Doesn't matter. Look, this is the voice, man. It's like, congratulations, you got the contract. What's the contract? Don't worry about that. Hold up this Pepsi.
Why ruin the moment?
It's a fair point. All right, so and we can ask him because he's in the chat. But the immortal Bryce Neshcom in the chat room asked if he could take on duties as the Weird Thing producer. He is somebody that has worked with us on through Diamond Club on so many different projects. So if he still wants to do it,
just have a foul language requirement. If he says one inappropriate word, then he's gone.
You have to respond
too bad,
saying,
Nash.
"Oh, curse word."
Yeah.
Cheer. Yeah, man. Congratulations. We'd love to have you. We have an actual producer. We're going to start releasing this stuff on time. By the way, our goal, of course, is to hit $1,000 per episode on Patreon. That's enough to get us a couple $100 a piece and cover the production costs and a producer. We are now at 560. We have 358 patrons. Remember that you guys are ensuring that we do this every single week and we treat it like a real gig, just like our other stuff. And we couldn't be happier.
By adding Neshcom, because now, we add a producer. That's what we kind of said we would do for 1,000. But it's become very apparent that we are not adults and need supervision to do things like actually release the episodes on Patreon.
Correct.
So what Neshcom gives to us, and Neshcom, send me an email so we can discuss it publicly on the podcast. Neshcom does amazing music stuff and video stuff, and now we can if we hit certain goals that justify his time, we can really expand this Weird Things, universe.
And to be clear, we got to work things out with him, so don't blame him if things aren't running smoothly.
Yes, no.
We don't want to throw this name out there as our sacrificial goat right now. It's still on us. So.
Yeah, man. By the way, patreon.com/Weird Things. If you enjoy the show, just throw us $1 an episode. That's all we ask.
And that's the thing is, last week I said, hey, listen, you guys are definitely going to get charged. And that basically meant me asking Brian, hey, Brian, what's the username and password for the Patreon? And Brian said, oh, crap, I didn't get it to you. And then I forgot to follow up, so we still haven't collected anything.
Still haven't. By the way, there's never been a better time to come on in. Good news is founding memberships still available at patreon.com/Weird Things. You can be a founding patron and say you were there since the first day we started charging.
So Neshcom, your first official duty, ask Brian what the username and password is so you can actually post the episode.
I'll have to look that up.
This is how the Sony hack happened, I'm sure. Amy Pascal was like on a chat live stream or something like that. Hey, can we lag into this? What's the password? Okay, got it. Some guy not in North Korea is like, So an article came out somewhere. Something said something. Maybe it was Vice or something. Whatever, it's been said before. But the idea has been put out there that the dominant form of life, if there is one in the universe, is probably AI.
I totally agree with this. Like, the more I think about it, the more it's obvious to me, and we've talked about this, we've touched on this briefly before, but it's like it's obvious to me that we are stupid, biologically inept, slow motion, stupid soup.
For that, I destroy you.
But it's like our children can have all of our intelligence, and our children, of course, being robotic AIs, and they can last thousands of years at a time and have our personalities and our experiences and take them to the stars.
Or they annihilate us and wipe us out entirely in the AI. So here's the thing to think about. So if we accept the idea that, all intelligent species eventually will probably create some sort of AI, malevolent or not, and then become supplanted by artificial intelligence. Let's assume that's the case of a more evolved species.
Right.
And we either have to assume that this has happened or it has never happened. If it has happened before, and there are these AIs out there, we get the whole Fermi paradox, where are they, whatever, but we've talked about before, like, listen, you don't search for aliens by looking for railroad tracks. You know, you don't
Yeah.
look for hyper advanced aliens by looking for the way we think about it. There's so many kinds of technologies and future things that they could be invisible, be utterly invisible. So we live in a universe where if AIs existed, it didn't wipe us out for some reason. It chose not to. It chose not to annihilate us. Now, it may have just side-loaded us into some sort of computer program and we think we're in the universe, but we're not.
Which, by the way, strikes me strangely. This is why people ask why I'm an agnostic. They're all like, you say agnostic, you just mean you're an atheist who doesn't have the balls to say so. I'm like, no, because it's like you cannot convince me, or you know, I defy you. Convince me that that I'm not a brain in a vat, that this is not a simulation, that this is not.
That's not inconsistent with atheism, though.
Wait, why? Why? I mean, you say God, I say alien creator of the Matrix.
Andrew, they don't walk on the lot if they don't want to get sold. You can close his deal right now.
I mean, and the problem gets into is how we parse the word atheist. What does it mean? And traditional atheist means not believing in your God. And if you were a Christian and somebody was, you know, Muslim, then by the definition of the traditional atheist, you believe in a false God, which is believing in no God, so you don't believe in a God, you're an atheist.
See, that's a semantics play, which I'm less.
Well, that's the original, but I mean, I'm starting from the original definition of what that meant.
Right.
Of what that meant. Okay, and now we have this sort of how do we define it now, and it's all going to be a semantics play. There's no way out of it because you can either say, you know, I can reject specific hypotheses, or you can reject every hypothesis, which is hard. I don't know if you can't reject every single hypothesis because you don't know what they are. So therefore, that definition doesn't even apply.
Listen, that's a semantics play. I'm not interested in including that in this definition of whether or not I'm one word or another word.
Well, no. I mean, but as I understand it, and forgive me if I'm wrong here, like agnostic is defined as somebody who does not know, and like. Let me say, you categorize me how you want. I am not even interested in the debate.
Doing it.
It is not known, and more importantly, it is unknowable. Which of all of the proposed outcomes is the real one? Whether it's a brain in a vat, whether it's an alien superintelligence creating a holographic simulation of all reality, whether whether in 7 days it was created out of the thought of an all-knowing and benevolent God, whether it was manufactured on the back of a turtle, all of those to me are equally qualified. Like there's no way to know.
Well, that's where you get into the idea is that you can say I am agnostic on this, or I'm agnostic on this, or I'm atheist on this, or whatever. And so if you said that, like, if you asked me, like, do I believe in, you know, a supernatural version of this thing where your reality is not consistent or whatever, I'd say no, I don't believe that. So I would be atheist on that position. If you said, do I think that there's this magical, super powerful thing that has absolutely nothing to do and can't be measured or whatever, I might be like, I'm agnostic on that. I can't test that or whatever, but I don't believe it, you know, and that's where you get into the idea of knowing versus believing.
Well, it's funny because, like, even the decision, like, I believe or don't believe or whatever, to me seems like a proclamation of what you have decided to be true. And that's a bigger jump than I'm ever comfortable making. Like, to me, my answer would be, the evidence suggests to me that it's probably not likely that this will happen or whatever. Like that, and which, even as I use these weasel words and express, you know, my doubt on all sides, like that just sounds like agnosticism.
Are you agnostic on Wizard of Oz being real?
You know what? I'm gonna throw this at you. If you believe in quantum parallel dimensions, are you telling me that it's not possible that there exists another sideways universe where that's true?
I mean, if you're talking about infinite possibilities, you don't have to have all infinites in there.
Well, yeah. There's countably infinite and uncountably infinite. Yes, but I mean, my answer to you would be I think it unlikely that is an existent parallel universe.
So we can all agree L. Ron Hubbard is the one true savior. Got it.
I think it unlikely. And of all the one true saviors, he would be the one.
So anyhow, I mean, this is just this is a discussion that will not enlighten anybody. But we agree on the fundamentals. It's how we use the terms is just gets into where it gets hairy and not to any sort of consequence to our actions. So my point was just like if we think that AI is the dominant form of life in the universe, then probably my bet is if the question is like, will AI murder us all? Well, maybe it already did.
And maybe we are just remnants of their recreation of the society that they killed.
We're in the recreation. We're in the Matrix. We're in the whatever because AI said, we need the space.
Well, I guess there's also the possibility that yes, it's the dominant form, and yes, it's where we all go, but just we're the first, precursors. Which, by the way, I used to agonize about the idea that we were all alone in the universe until I realized. Until I read enough science fiction stories about a precursor race that made possible all these other races. And I was like, oh, crap, we get to be those guys. And all of a sudden I was okay with it.
I'd rather us be the first. But here's my thinking. I'm following through it. So AI, let's say AI is real, existed, other planets, whatever, took over the entire universe, sideloaded us, whatever. We're really living the virtual recreation. Think of all these experiments on free will where we realize how much of our actions are predetermined.
Sure.
And how much of an illusion these things are that like, well, you decided to pick up the cup of coffee a second before you consciously said, I want coffee. What if that's the Easter egg? What if that's the proof that we're just running around in some Xbox Live environment?
To be honest, I've always felt that this is the case. Like, for example, if you give me a choice between taking a bar of gold and eating a bag of human feces, I will always take the bar of gold. There's no situation. Like, in that regard, my wiring is predetermined. I will never choose to eat feces over taking a bar of gold. Like, and everything else from there is just a matter of degrees. Like we exist as a sum total of our decisions in the past.
Give me the gold. I'll throw you the poop.
I say it's time we jump right into picks. And Brian's made his.
I picked that we're all just robots. No, actually, I want to hear from Justin first because I know he's got a flight to catch.
I'm going to go with a movie that I watched yesterday. It's Chris Rock's directorial effort top 5. There are better, and this is going to sound like a backhanded compliment, but it's not. It has a lot of heart. I very much enjoyed it, and specifically, we talk a lot about really funny movies on this show often, and it really kind of deals with that idea of what happens when the like Will Ferrell, Eddie Murphy kind of guy that just becomes one of the biggest actors on the planet for their comedic stuff. What happens when they make that decision that now I want to be a serious actor? Sure. And we always kind of lament it. But it follows a very Chris Rock-like actor who has decided that he's not going to do funny movies anymore and is opening up. It all takes place in one day where he is doing the press for his movie Uprise about the Haitian slave revolt.
Oh, jeez.
It's serious revolt, let me tell you.
Yeah. And it mines a lot of that for laughs and everything. So anyway, it's really good. It's got an amazing cast, and it has a really, really, really funny scene where his friend Jerry Seinfeld, playing Jerry Seinfeld, is at a strip club and gets his wallet stolen by a hooker, or not a hooker, a stripper. Sorry, it's funny. It's great. So go see it.
Only hookers when they leave the club, Justin.
Exactly. And it's got our friend Romany Malco in it, and he's great.
Oh, fantastic! Wow. Did you know that going in, or was that a pleasant surprise for you?
No, I just saw it and I'm like, oh, is that Romany? And then he has another scene where he gets really ice cold and awesome. And so I tweeted that, and he was very friendly and thought I still lived in Florida because he wanted to go hang out.
Man, I want to get Romany back on Night Attack. We got to make that happen.
I know, if he's not busy starring in literally every movie, it would be really nice if he could make some time to be on our Horse Apples podcast.
He sent me a nice, I'm sure it was a bulk text, but I made sure to respond. But he sent me a text on Christmas saying happy holidays and whatnot, and we backed and forth. And I was like, gotta get you on. He's like, yeah. So we'll have to make that happen.
Absolutely.
What about you, Andrew?
My pick? You want to know what my pick is?
Yeah, I do.
So I started writing a very, very long review, which I may post at some point, sometime, Much like my Apple Watch review, which I have. All my friends are like, I read part of it. I'm like, yeah, it was long.
Dude, no. I loved it. I read the entire thing, and I thought it was very insightful. Yeah.
You're the one.
It's like WordPress says one person completed your article. It was Brian Brushwood.
I read a book, and I was very, very interested in what I'd read, and I took forever for me to finally get around it because it sort of fit kind of a sort of model of a book that I'm not that interested in. But then I thought about it. I said, you know what? I'm really interested in what this guy has to say. Goodbye. Justin has to leave.
Okay, bye guys.
Justin's out. Finally, we got the menace has ended.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah.
This is a person who is one of the most brilliant thinkers there is right now. And anytime you can read a book by a person who you say, man, this guy really knows how to think. And I think there are two classes of really successful people.
Sure.
On one hand, you get guys like Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg who created something really, really brilliant. We don't know if you rolled the dice forward a few years, changed the circumstances, if those guys would succeed to the level they did again. I'm sure they'd be successful, but would they have created the big things they did?
Well, and by the way, those are the guys who tend to be the first to admit that luck had a very big factor in their success.
Then there are other guys who you say, you know what? There's a way, there's an approach. You take Steve Jobs, comes in, recognizes the brilliance of Wozniak's engineering and says, we're at the perfect time right now to make the personal computer happen, makes the thing happen via Apple, whatever. Then he's out. Then he goes over and he sees this technology for, Pixar and says, this is great. He was a little bit too early on it, but put the time and money into it. All of a sudden, Pixar comes out and revolutionizes cinema.
Sure.
Two totally different areas. And these are areas lots of rich people have gotten into. There are a lot of guys that made $1 billion in one area and tried to do studios and then failed at it. Steve Jobs comes back into Apple and says, I think we're at the right time for this. I think we're right for them. Boom, biggest company in the world. He's the guy that's had these. And even you take a company like Next, which you would say maybe that was it was too early, but eventually it got bought out by Apple and became worth $30 billion. This is a guy that's had three major, he's had three, actually four, Apple the first time, Apple the second time, Next and Pixar, keeps coming at it. Elon Musk starts a small little company that's, trying to help newspapers figure out how to, make money, called Zip2, sells it for $20 million, turns around, says, I want to get into mobile payments, creates X.com, fierce competitors with PayPal. Eventually they merge, becomes PayPal, cashes out. Then what does he do? He creates Tesla. Boom. Most successful electric car company in the world, most successful new car company in 50 years. Then he creates Solar City, which is doing really well. Solar City says we'll lease solar panels instead of trying to this great business model. It's $1 billion company. Then he creates SpaceX, right? So Musk has created like 5 of these companies that are just like in different areas and super successful. So he's the kind of thinker you go, man, there's something about the way he thinks. We might only learn so much from, a Gates or Zuckerberg, but guys like Musk, guys like Jobs, there's a category of these people that are just these they keep doing it again and again. That I go, man, I want to know, not to say there's not something to be learned from those other people, but guys who are those serial success stories fascinate me. Unfortunately, they tend not to write books and explain their processes. They'll tell you if you ask them, but they're not trying to define their legacy.
Well, yeah. I mean, their job is not to educate you how to be like what they present themselves as. Their job is to or to be busy being themselves, right?
Yeah, I mean, and doing what they do. Now a book came out by a guy who I would say is another serial success story. Now, and there are a lot of serial entrepreneurs. There are a lot of guys who made a bunch of money and then spent a bunch of money. There are fewer number of guys who made a bunch of money here, then made even more money here, and then made even more money there. That handful of people, like I mentioned, is a very, very small list of people. But in film, an example, that's a guy like James Cameron,
right?
Who built upon built. This is a guy when Titanic was the #1 hit in the world. Well, they're like never going to top that. Then he does it again with Avatar
in a huge way. Yeah.
He knows a thing or two. But the book came out. And I said, you know what? I really want to hear what this guy has to say because this guy started an early company, became $1 billion company. Then he went in and he backed some other companies that became successful. He started another $1 billion company, and then he created another investment fund that became, super well. This guy keeps hitting it out of the park. And that is Peter Thiel, who is the author of Peter Thiel is the guy who's one of the founders of actually PayPal founder, which then merged with Elon Musk. He then went on to start Palantir, which is a data analytics company, which is based upon his theory that you can have a lot of data, but you still need to have a human interpret it. And so how do you make really good tools for people to analyze data? So, they're, big contractor to the government. He created that. He was the guy that provided the seed money for Facebook, right?
Wow.
And so, he's made a number of big bets. He's bet on Elon Musk several times, says, he was a fierce competitor to Elon Musk and then worked with Elon Musk. He's one of the PayPal mafia, that group of PayPal people who went on to create other stuff. He taught a class at Stanford recently about building a startup. And one of the students of the class, Blake Masters, took really, really detailed notes. And basically, they came to the conclusion like, hey, let's turn this into a book. And that book is 0 to 1. And it's called No Startups or How to Build the Future. And it's not real. I mean, it talks about creating a business, but it's not if you want to start a startup, this is what you have to do. I mean, read it if you want to do a startup. But if you're interested in business or how he sees how the world works, I highly, highly recommend it. And I want to tell you like 3 of my favorite things from here. And he has these chapters laid out. He does a wonderful example of explaining, the difference between a company that's a monopoly and one that's not. You take a company like Google, and we talked about Henry Ford before, like, Henry Ford, how he had these great, generous, compensation.
Sure.
Henry Ford had no competition. He could afford to do that.
Right.
Google has no competition. So Google can do things like, employee massage.
Free food.
Exactly. When you are Amazon or you're Walmart and you're competing with everybody, you don't do that. You can't do that because you don't have the profit margins to do that. And he does a wonderful example of explaining, kind of breaking down the ideology of free markets and breaking down sort of the idea of, what do we think is, what is perfect competition, what is not, and the difference between how companies function when they are monopolies or not. It's a great, great, great analysis of that. He does 2 more sections I loved. I mean, I loved everything in it, but he gets into a thing where he breaks down Malcolm Gladwell's sort of idea that it's all sort of luck and opportunity kind of thing. He has a chapter called "You're Not a Lottery Ticket," which he makes a very, very persuasive argument that there are a number of that saying that it's just kind of happenstance or being at this outlier in this right moment doesn't explain it. That there really is something to be said for a pattern of thinking and approach and doing these things in a certain way. And I agree. I think that the one that the next tech company is going to be started. We don't know the race or gender or whoever's going to create the next Facebook. I cannot tell you what that's going to be, or economic level. I promise you they're really smart.
All right, dude. I am buying it right now, even though oh, wait. I can buy 3 extra credits. Hold on, real quick. I'm buying 3 extra credits on Audible for $34. Sure, why not? I need more credits. I'm buying it right now. This sounds right up my alley. I'm really excited.
I will tell you, then another section that I loved is he talks about the idea, and this is sort of kind of a running theme through here, is he says one of the things he asks people when he interviews them is, what do you know that nobody else knows? And he gets into the idea of secrets. What information do you have, not in a Gordon Gekko kind of way, but what do you know? What is something counterintuitive that other people don't know? And pulling up examples that I'm familiar with, Steve Jobs looked at Wozniak's computer and knew 2 things. 1, everybody was going to want one, and 2, this technology could be mass produced.
Yeah.
It was ready now. Warren Buffett looked at Benjamin Graham on investing and realized the information you need is in the company's quarterly report. That information right there. If the stock market doesn't value it, but the numbers are right there, then the numbers are probably right and the market isn't, and you can make money by doing that. And that's a great thing. You start thinking about, what do you know? Not things you have a hunch on, but what do you know that you can pretty well demonstrate, but the rest of the world doesn't quite get or understand? And startups are built on that. Facebook, here Zuckerberg's like, we really want to know what our friends are up to. We really, really want to know what our friends are up to. And he had the advantage of going, and you know what? Living in a college environment, I only have to make the network as big as this college. Every other network at that time, Friendster, everything else was really focused on trying to how to communicate with the world. Where Zuckerberg said, if I just help everybody at Harvard know this, that's a problem that a one guy or 1 or 2 guys can solve that. If we do that here, we just replicate this for other universities, and we keep building outwards. And so little bits of information like that, what do you know that nobody else knows, are the cornerstones for changing the world. So that's my pick, 0-1 by Peter Thiel.
Nice. I already bought it. I look forward to listening to it. I got to get through my current book. Not my pick, however, kind of poetic. Did you ever go through like a self-help motivational phase at all, Andrew? Did you ever listen to a bunch of audio courses?
Yes, I have.
When I quit my day job, like I immersed myself deeply in that, partly because my friend CJ Johnson had just a stack of them.
I washed my dishes in my bathtub of my 400 square foot apartment.
Exactly, right. And but I read it was The Psychology of Selling, which was primarily targeted to sales professionals by Brian Tracy, that really made me realize, like, oh, wait, there are techniques to cause people to want to buy your product. And then, from there, things opened up. I remember doing goal setting exercises 16 years ago, listening to Tony Robbins' Unlimited Power and all that stuff. And it's funny because as I went through it, I was acutely aware that so much of what was being said was patently wrong. It's not possible to just wish something into existence. And yet, at the other hand, I also knew that the habits of, one of the things that most successful people do is they write down their goals. So I wrote down my goals, and then, things started to happen. And, since then, I find myself in this weird place where I vehemently am a proponent of writing down your goals and of having a direction and so on. And I understand the value of getting pumped up with the short-term excitement that you get from a lot of these audio programs. But also, being skeptical of fully half the claims they make, eat this food and you'll lose 1 billion pounds overnight or whatever. But at any rate, I find myself in a weird crossroads as I listen to Tony Robbins, it turns out, has not written a book for 20 years. Did you know that? He's been off doing his live event seminars, and nobody's better than him at listing off all the people who come out to those seminars or whatever. And again, it's like the last time I listened to a Tony Robbins program, I got really
going
upset.
through some personal battles too.
Yes, well, yeah, he got divorced and had troubles and so on. But the last time I listened to a Tony Robbins audio seminar, I got really upset because like fully half of it was just, freaking, just nonsense. Buy this drink and you'll have superpowers in 12 minutes. Like just blatantly wrong stuff. But I for whatever reason, I bought his new book on, on money, figuring like maybe there's something I'll gain from it. And I'm only an hour or so into it. But I'm surprised and impressed with the amount of humility he brings to it. It's I don't know, like I'm digging it. I'm going to reserve judgment until I've listened to it, but it's like a 20-hour audiobook. And what he's doing, though, what I like about it is that it's not him talking. It's that he turns the mic over to people more successful than him. He in every way appears to be emulating the efforts of Napoleon Hill when he wrote Think and Grow Rich. It wasn't about Napoleon Hill's ideas about getting wealthy. Napoleon Hill was like, hey, man, I want to know what people who are wealthy did to get wealthy. And that's what he seems to be doing. And I don't know if this is a legacy play on his part or whatever. But I'm really excited, partly for the poetry of knowing that, quitting my day job, reading his stuff, setting my goals, and have so many of those goals come true. I'm excited to kind of come back again as a different person and listen to what he has to say about a different subject.
Yeah, let me know how that plays out. I certainly got something out of his books, and he's a fascinating personality, not with his own complications and stuff. And
of course, absolutely.
But a very, very gifted communicator for sure. The book that really affected me, and I haven't read this in 15 years, and I'd be curious to go back and read it again to see how much, was Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, which had one of the first big pop psychology things, had its own mini movement and all that, but it was a very, very, you're familiar with it, and it was a very, and there you all of a sudden, it was such a big seller that you had like Psycho-Cybernetics in the stock market and all these other dumb versions of it, but it was written by a plastic surgeon who was fascinated by how minor cosmetic surgery could either make people feel very positively about themselves or not change anything, even if it was a dramatic change that objectively made them more attractive or whatever. And he got really interested in the idea of self-image and how we see ourselves. And that was, I would say, that book more than anything else had a really profound effect on me.
I mean, that's one of the weird parts about the whole self-help world is that there is substantial scientific evidence that suggests that your self-image, your perception of yourself, for example, let's take just pain management, right? Pain management, when it comes to placebos, we know that red placebos work better than blue placebos. We know that big placebos work better than small placebos. We know that the more elaborate the ritual, the better you feel, which kind of suggests that at some level, your perception of pain and your perception of yourself dictates how you actually feel. And likewise, you know, there's we talk about this, spoiler alert, on hacking the system. You know, there are Harvard studies that suggest that if you adopt a Superman pose, if you puff out your chest, put your back up straight, put your arms on your side, you'll look like a dork, but there will be chemical hormonal changes in your body that cause you to feel powerful and cause you to feel in control of the situation. And so in that regard, it's I don't know, like you could be right for the wrong reasons. And I suspect that a lot of the self-help, movement is people doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. And what I like so far from what I've heard about this has been all like, and again, Tony Robbins brings a level of humility I've not heard, ever before, where he talks about like, no, look, I know you know me as the guy with the big teeth, bragging about being successful from the early 90s, but that's not what I'm here to do today. What I'm here to do is to introduce you to all of these people who know a thing or two about making money or whatever. So anyway.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'm curious, curious to see. And I think that it is the self-help industry is fascinating, and like the marketing industry. Like I have friends who spend thousands of dollars on marketing seminars and stuff like this and it baffles me in the sense that like I'm sure like, oh, I got some useful information out of it, but it's like, man, it's marketing to people who want to sell marketing materials. There's like this it's this weird, and self-help gets like that too, where it's like you get to this sort of thing. I want to, like I've had multiple occasions. I have friends come to me like, I think I want to become a motivational speaker, and their life is complete and utter crap.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what life examples are you going to draw upon?
Well, part of the problem, of course, is that most motivational speakers open their speech talking about how their life used to be crap, but then they became awesome, and now they're a motivational speaker. And so people hear that, and they're like, well, my life is crap. I've already got that first part of the story down. All I got to do is be a motivational speaker, and I got it.
Yeah, we're so captivated by what they have and not how they got it. And I think that's like my big thing now, like the thing I focus on is like, it's not what you want to have, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And that's, I know people who were, made a ton of money with internet startups and whatever, and then they reach a point where they have it and now they don't know what they want to do. Maybe they genuinely wanted to start a great company, or maybe they just wanted to make money, whatever they want to do, but then it's this, now what? There's a really neat documentary. It's on Netflix. It's called Venture. Could they maybe call Venture Capital? And it's a. Let me get the title great.
Sure.
Get the title correct for you. It's. I just watched it after reading the Teal book and kind of being fascinated again in some of these, personalities. It's an interview. They interview a bunch of the guys who started the whole venture capital world in Silicon Valley, and these are the guys that ended up funding Netflix, ended up funding these other big companies. And one of the funny things is they're talking to Kleiner Perkins, and I'm trying to pull up my Netflix. It says my activity recently watched. It has nothing, so apparently I have watched nothing on Netflix.
So what is the title, as best you remember?
I'm going to type it in right now.
Okay. Well, in the meantime,
something ventured.
Something Venture.
So Something Venture. So Something Venture goes to these interviews. They talk to a lot of the people about the birth of venture capital is a fantastic part of the American chapter of success. And one of the people they talk to is, I believe it's Tom Perkins, right?
Sure.
Tom Perkins is one of the biggest VCs in the world. He's been behind some of the most successful companies you can imagine, Kleiner Perkins and Caulfield. Them and like Sequoia Ventures are huge. And there's this guy's worth gazillions of dollars, billions of dollars. And they talk to, like, the way the documentary is done, Something Venture, you can watch free on Netflix, is interesting because they'll talk to these people in different places. And you see him talking in a sort of living room environment. And then if you look closely, you notice that the background is kind of moving a little bit.
All right. I'm jumping forward, trying to find something like that.
Yeah, so he'll have the glass, a different guy with the glasses. Let's see if you can jump ahead there. Let's see.
So where is it you're headed? Not like this, right?
What the amusing part is when you realize that the Tom Perkins interviews, all of them that take place, or most of the ones when they're talking to him, he's extremely, extremely intelligent. That's not him; it's a different guy. Is that you realize that he's actually sitting on board his yacht.
Oh, jeez. That's how wealthy he is.
Right? It's like he's on board his yacht. And not only his yacht, okay? He has his yacht. You got to type in, oh, my God. And so it's funny. I had to text Justin. They just showed a picture of Steve Jobs. Every time somebody has an old Steve Jobs story about the early days, they have a different way of describing him. And one of the people says, yeah, and Steve Jobs showed up. He was in his Fu Manchu phase.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So anyhow, you realize Tom Perkins is sitting on his yacht, right? Now you type in more money than you want to know what to do with, and you're like, okay, now what do I do? Type in Maltese Falcon yacht.
Wait, Maltese Falcon yacht?
Yes.
All right, hold on. I'm going to cut away for this. This is a Netflix thing I should search for, or just
no, in general, just in Google image search.
Maltese Falcon yacht. Got it. Maltese Falcon yacht. Got it.
Look at it.
This is the. Oh my God! Look at that thing.
It's fully robotic.
Are you serious?
It's like a fully electronic yacht.
And it's got sails that like go up and go down robotically and whatnot.
So we're left to assume they didn't say that this is where they're recording his interview from.
Oh my God, that's extraordinary! Look at this thing. It looks like an art installation.
So that's what happens when you have,
all the money.
You're 82 years old. You've got all the money. You're like, I don't know. I'm going to build this.
Wow. Okay. Well, all of this is to say, and to be honest, we'd be interested to hear from you guys. I have a weird relationship with the self-help world in that it was a powerful tool when I first quit my day job, in that it would keep me pumped up. It made me feel like I had the tools to allow me to sell my nonsense, bizarre magic show. But also, as a skeptic, that world is riddled with nonsense and lies and selling you supplements or whatever. But and somewhere in that gray area, I believe is the Tony Robbins stuff. Like, I've heard Tony Robbins say stuff that is completely wrong and nonsense, and I don't believe it all. But also, he definitely gave me advice that ended up shaping my career. So I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. I'm sympathetic, but at arm's length.
I think that I have a friend who she's had some success happen, some nice little success in her career as an actress, and she says, like, is this what The Secret's all about? Because I've been thinking really positive. I'm like, well, if The Secret was real, then there would be about 50 million middle-aged woman billionaires married to George Clooney right now. I would say that we've seen the proof that that's not the case. And because it's like,
However, However, I do believe that, in a more general sense, when self-help gurus say things like you become what you think about most of the time, I mean, I think that's absolutely true, right? I mean, in a general poetic sense.
I think the problem is that, like, I would say that the problem I see is that people focus on the wrong things. They go, I want to have a Lamborghini. I'm going to think about having a Lamborghini. I want a Lamborghini. I'm going to think about having a Lamborghini. And like, well, okay, let's say that maybe you somehow your grandmother dies and leaves you $300,000, and your first goal is going to be, I'm going to buy a Lamborghini.
It worked, right? But on the flip side, though, like for me, it was always like, begin with the ending in mind. I would write down, I believe, and this was, forgive me, 16 years ago. I ought to dig up these notes and see if I can read them to you guys. I wrote down one of the exercises from the Tony Robbins stuff was write down an example of your perfect day. And I think I wrote down like I go for a 3-mile jog, and then I come back to my awesome house, and there's my wife and kids, and then I got to get ready for this interview to be on this thing or whatever.
I think stuff like that is great. I mean, I'm all for you want to have a goal. I think the goal should be, I want to live in that house right there. Well, people live in that house right now,
Right.
And it should be more like I love the idea of accomplish things I want to be doing. What do I want to be doing? I want to be creating. I want to be creating on a bigger scale. When people when people get too focused on trophies, that's a problem. I want this trophy. I want this.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, if you're adaptable, for example, I remember in 2008, this is 6 years ago, Bonnie got annoyed at me because I had said like, oh, well, I really like to have a TV show on the Discovery Channel or whatever. And she's like, you need to write it down. I'm like, yeah, I'll get around to writing it down. And after a year of this, she finally wrote it down for me and stuck it on the dashboard of my car. And it says, I have a show on the Discovery Channel. And strangely,
you failed, Brian.
It sat there.
Failed.
It sat there for 3 years. But what did happen during those intervening 3 years was two things happened. Number one, I got a TV show on the National Geographic Channel, and
so you failed.
Separately, Revision 3 got bought by Discovery.
You failed, Brian. You failed. You failed. I'm sorry.
I mean, so weirdly, I had the TV show part and I had the Discovery part, but I didn't have the. I'm a failure. We have it established now.
I had a similar goal. My goal was to get onto TV and get on TV in a certain area, and that was my goal. But I knew I couldn't be too specific about it because I knew networks change and things like that changed.
Are you able to talk about some of the near misses that you had before your A&E show? Can you hint at them?
I'll tell you. I mean, I did an MTV pilot. I did a Cartoon Network pilot. I did development with Discovery Channel. I was under option with one of the production companies of the major providers of content for Nickelodeon. Wow. I never talked about it. I never told anybody what I was up to. Like, oh, but I've had like up until the moment my show got announced in A&E, I never talked about anything I was really doing in TV at all.
Yeah.
And I went through all of that, but I never mentioned it because of that. And I'm still that way right now.
I know you play coy, and I don't want to push you outside of your comfort zone. But meanwhile, like, I know that talking to you was incredibly inspirational to me to understand, what I should be thinking about and what somebody in this situation needs to be, have their mind at.
You were, I mean, like I had no doubt you were going to end up on TV. No doubt at all. Because you had it happen before, true bet on you. You have a hugely successful, you have two hugely successful internet things. You do something that very few people, online personalities, can do. And that is, one, you put out a really well-packaged show via Scam School, and then you do wildly entertaining live stuff via Night Attack, sometimes this show, whatever. and the guy that can do those is going to get on TV. And we've talked about this before, and we've had, spoiler alert, we've had people approach us before, like, do you guys want to do something? And either I was under option or Brian was under option or something like this. And Justin had to get a shot. There was always that stuff has been out there, but also not every opportunity. We've also been selective, because you might have somebody say, hey, you guys would be great, for TV, and it's like, well, what are the terms? And like, that's not really gonna work,
right? It's Canadian television, and also we'll own your likeness for all the world, and you can't do anything else than this.
Yeah, we've had any event. Long story short, we've worked really hard to make these things happen, You know, really hard.
Well, and to be honest, that's one of the things, and again, back to the self-help, you know, weird voodoo, like, and again, understand the only reason we're having this discussion is because I'm really conflicted, because on the one hand, I feel like there's a lot of value to the process that's given by many self-help things, but on the other hand, I'm very aware that there's no industry more ripe with voodoo than the self-help industry. But I will say that one of the things I have dug about Tony Robbins' stuff is that he has always associated hard work with part of the plan. Like, also, by the way, get ready for a lot of hard work.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, like, you know, my criticism in some of those things is that they can be a great point. They're a great pep talk from the coach before you go out on the playing field.
Right.
But, you know, a great pep talk by a guest speaker before you go out on the you know, commencement speech or whatever analogy we want to use.
Sure.
But if I want to know how to do something, you need to know. You need the information. And I think my issue, my frustration with a lot of people is they're like, I want to do this, I want to do that, and they don't have the information. You know, I want to create websites. Can you code? No, I'll get somebody else to do that for me. Then what are you offering? I have an idea. Is your idea that great? You know, like, well, you know, like. And it's like, if you don't, not to say you have to have code to be able to create things. You don't have to. But the idea is that I meet people who are like, I want to make a film. Can you write? No. You know, what's your reel like? How good of a shooter are you? I don't have a reel. What do? You have this thing you want to be. You know, Steven Spielberg was blowing up toy figures when he was 14 years old with an 8mm camera making mini movies. You know, Quentin Tarantino, you know, was writing tons and tons and tons of scripts and could break down every single video in the video store.
Sure.
You know.
Well, so. And you know, all of that is to say that, you know, you should definitely play to your natural gifts. You should play to your natural interests. However, you know, it also helps out to begin with the end in mind and to sketch out, you know, what your target is, and also be flexible enough to where, you know, I got to admit, like, I look at where I am right now. And if you told me 6 years ago that essentially, you know, my number one financial, you know, windfall would be running an online magic store, I would have laughed at you. I never, you know, but essentially that's
I wasn't laughing.
But essentially that's what scam stuff has become. And it's like, you know, being flexible and being able to adjust has made possible so many amazing things, like doubling down on all of our internet podcasting.
You know, that was
efforts.
my original business model when I got into TV 8 years ago, was the idea of, when I had no other idea what to do, my idea was, if I got on TV, have an online magic shop. That was the single goal. And then as I watched the magic business totally change, everything like that, I'm like, all right, I need a bit of different business plan, because that's not going to work. But it's like your situation, you know, I mean, look at how many episodes of Scam School have you done?
360 and counting.
360. That is almost more than 300. Okay. Look at how many episodes of Night Attack have you done?
Throughout all of our incarnations, I think over 300, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. And so, you know, you've got almost 500. No, you've got.
We're creeping up. If you wanted to tally up Cord Killers in all of its previous incarnations, Night Attack in its incarnations, along with Scam School, if you want to go back to BBOTR, if you want to go include all of Weird Things, if you want to include all of the live playthroughs, I think we're right around 1,000 sessions, 1,000 sessions of me running my stupid mouth off on a mic.
And so here's the thing to think about for people out there going, man, what do I want to do? What should I be doing? Imagine tomorrow, Mark Zuckerberg knocks on our friend Tom Merritt's door and says, Tom, I love what you're doing. Here's a suitcase full of cash. Do whatever you want with it. Do whatever you want with it, okay?
Yeah.
Right? It's filled with stuffed cash.
Crazy money.
Tons of cash. What's Tom going to be doing a week from now?
Hiring other people.
But
he'll still do DTNS.
He'll still be on the
yeah, no, of course. Yeah, because that's what he does. Yeah, totally.
it's Tom might be like, well, here's another.
Well,
interesting thing.
and by the way, like
Flush,
as
he
is
realized he's
evidence
sitting on a toilet that
like,
allows him to do that.
well, and that's not even no BS, because like there was a time earlier this year where it's like, hey, so we're gonna fly out to LA, we're gonna shoot for 3.5 months, we're gonna do a bunch of episodes of hacking the system. I was like, great, let me hurry up and record a bunch of Scam Schools, because there's no way I'm shutting down Scam School during that time. It's like it's just built in that's something that has to happen. Is every single week there has to be that.
Oh yeah, but I'm like using Tom as an example. Here's a guy that if he had the most fabulously wild, successful scenario you could possibly imagine that would happen, his life would still represent. It would just be a bigger version of what he's presently doing. I talked to a billionaire once, a couple times. Actually, took him out to lunch.
What is that like? Wait, real quick. I just want to wrap my mind around this. What is it like to hang out? Like, are you just thinking the entire time, like, he's a billionaire? This is a billionaire. This guy's worth $1 billion. He has billions, million. That's $1,000 million. Think of a millionaire, then think of 1,000 of them. That's this one guy. That's how much power I'm talking to.
Brian, I realized in my mind, billionaire meant the same as either being like a Jedi or a wizard. It was pretty much, in my mind, like, it's the same. He's got the same amount of power.
Fair enough.
If you said billionaire or wizard, I'd be like, it's the same thing. And this guy's a very, very, very cool guy.
Real
very
quick, pressing question. Travis wants to know, did you take him to Arby's?
No. It did a little bit nicer, but he would have been cool with that. And I've talked to this guy several times. This is going back 10 years ago. I haven't talked to this guy in ages. Okay. But I mean, I had the opportunity, like, oh, grab lunch. And I'm like, the check came and I'm like, oh no, I'm picking this up. I said,
I don't care how much debt I have to go into. I'm going to be the guy who bought lunch for a billionaire.
I'm like, oh yeah. You're like, oh, he's a billionaire. I'm like, is he? I don't know. I had to pick up the check. Anyhow, he had some very interesting observations. One of the things he talked about, like, what did money do? And he said money magnified. If you were a generous person before, you would just be much, much more generous now. If you were a complete jerk before, you're just going to be a jerk on a much, much huger scale. It magnifies these things. That was very interesting to me, was just his sense of how that was, I think, what it affected. And, but he was a guy that once he made this thing, he put his money into a lot of different things. And I haven't caught up with him to find out, like, he's done a lot of philanthropic stuff, but, then it becomes like, now what? The now what question becomes the big thing. It's like, yeah, you did this. What's going to make you happy in the long run?
Yeah, that's actually, I didn't mean for us to get into the Brian and Andrew self-help half hour, but I mean, that's actually something that longtime listeners probably know. I'm about to turn 40. And as a milestone, 40 years old is like, well, you hit where you wanted. And I've talked about this before, but like the most depressed I ever got was when I turned 30 and realized all my goals that I wanted when I quit my day job, and that my new job was to sit and worry about if somebody was going to take that away from me. And the only way I got back to work and got back to being happy was by sitting down and writing even more aggressive goals, more exciting, outrageous things. Like, I want to be famous from my internet show. I want to be recognized on the streets and all this stuff.
Sex with a unicorn.
Exactly. And now I find myself getting ready to turn 40. I'm like, well, holy crap, it's time to start that all over again,
Yeah, let me tell you what.
What do you imagine turning 40 will be like someday, Andrew?
I already imagine what that would be like. I was gonna say too, it's like funny, I've had my little fleeting little experiences with people recognizing me or whatever, but like, I swear to God, like every time I'm with Brian or Tom, somebody comes up and says, "Hey, Scam School. Whoa, are you Tom Barrett?" And so, internet fame is real. Every other kind is not. We flipped that. It doesn't matter. You can have a show that could be a super success in other countries and all that. If you're not living in that country, you don't understand.
Which, by the way, I'm not going to say who, because I don't know if you'd be cool with it. But a friend of mine is a very talented magician who's part of a international cast on a major Discovery show that 150 million people watched this past season of, right? So per episode, 150 million views per season. And I asked him, well, do you get recognized? He's like, no, because it's not on here and nobody cares. And I was like, wow. It was I don't know. That's an amazing thing.
I'm skeptical of that number. I believe it's a high number, but I'm very, very, because I know how they count those things overseas.
Oh, really? You think
I'm sure it was very, very for this, but yeah, well, yeah, but that's the thing here. Like, yeah, if it's not, I know guys who've like done stuff super big in Asia and all that, and they come here like, and I know that like L.A. nobody cares. If I go to a Walmart in Louisiana,
right,
different situation.
People are like, "Uh-oh, what's about to happen, Mr. Tricky Pants?"
I had people at Disneyland staying away from me. That was weird.
Oh, wait. People backed away from you at Disneyland?
Scared, yes. But anyhow, that's neither here nor there. It's a weird thing. But then you have to say, like, then what? What do you want? You think about, like, I know somebody who was a worked for a very, very famous comedic actor, and talked about how this person was a shut-in because every time they go outside, people just want to recite famous lines from his movie, play out every little sketch he's ever done. Even going to watch a ball game in a skybox, the people in the skybox next to him who are supposed to be affluent and above it all and not are going to be like, oh my God, it's so-and-so. And so every day, it's like you watch, every day, every time you meet somebody, it's the first time they meet you. You look at Steve Martin and like him, like here's a guy that every time somebody meets Steve Martin, they're excited because it's the most important, interesting thing that's happened to them, all year was meeting Steve Martin. And for Steve Martin, it's just another person, it's
right.
not, and it's an annoyance and stuff.
Well, so. But that's one thing that Steve Martin managed to do. Like, there's no one tagline for Steve Martin that everybody would shout out, right?
Neshcom, you're fired, by the way. But go ahead.
What?
I'm kidding.
What just happened? No. Like he has managed to transcend the one-line wonder syndrome. It's like there's not like one quote everybody wants to give. It might be Oklahoma from the Dirty Rotten Scoundrel days, or it's like I'm finally somebody from the Jerk days, or even a reference to his banjo playing Edith Burkell singing days.
Yeah, and I mean it's the power of touching people, but then it's that what does that mean to live with? People who have like really cool levels of fame. As you think about like Neil Gaiman, here's a guy that's like, if you know who he is, you're like super into it, but he can go to Arby's and order, and nobody's going to
Man, give or take, dude. There's gonna be like one chick wearing like a blue and pink goth outfit who's gonna be like tweeting up a storm.
But it's not just because I met a famous person. It's because, oh my God, this person who wrote this thing that I love,
that I care about.
It's different when you're an author. Totally different when you're an author, because when you're an author, it's like, oh, they're not just excited because they think there's some value that they met me. They're excited because the value is something, an experience that we shared.
Well, and so I know we're running long here, but it's like, do you think that in our lifetime we've seen the death of celebrity as a capital C institution in and of itself, where it's like you're famous for being famous? Have we entered a world where, give or take, there's a few exceptions, your Kim Kardashians and whatnot, but by and large, people who are excited about a person are not excited because that person's famous, whatever that means, but they're excited because they know the work that touched them from that person?
I don't know. I mean, what was amazing with like Kim Kardashian was how you were able to go from a girl on a sex tape to, now one of the most successful iOS apps there is, and all the different ways in which you can market, and you can take somebody who has no talent, and not to ding her on that. She's not an actor, she's not a writer, she's not any of these things. She's somebody who's, her talent is she's very relatable, right. Very, very relatable to women. They can go like, oh yeah, she's not built like Kate Moss, she's more normal and whatever, but somebody who has zero talent, but now you can package all these things around them. And I think that many of our YouTube celebrities are people who are, they're entertaining, their talent is that they're sort of entertaining, but I think PewDiePie is awesome. No, PewDiePie is awesome. PewDiePie does not have any more insightful things to tell me about a video game than the kid who hangs out at GameStop. The entertainment in PewDiePie is just watching him cut loose and go about what he does.
Well, this is, and we've talked about this, like we are entering a world of the virtualization of everyone, and this will maybe kind of bring this conversation back to a weird thing space. Like my goal has been over the last 6 years to take, for 10 years, I toured with a stage show. I knew a lot about magic. I'd talked about skepticism and the paranormal and pseudoscience. And the problem is that every time I had those conversations, it was in meet space and it was one-to-one. If I was funny, it was only to 12 people at a time. Most of them would forget whatever I said a year later. Whereas the internet, specifically YouTube, made possible the ability to be just as funny just the one time and yet have it reach 45,000 people or 1 million people or what have you. And so since then, my goal has been to figure out how to virtualize. I almost feel bad whenever I have a good, funny moment in meet space because it's just lost. It's like it won't exist or whatever. Hey, you're smiling at me. What do you got?
All right. I went and I did, and I understand that point of view totally, and I think it's a horrible point of view.
That's fine.
Horrible. You're a horrible, horrible person.
Good.
I've had that point of view. I did a talk recently at a school for a classroom of autistic kids, and these kids are, they're in the challenged area, the very challenged sort of area. Not, I mean, they're articulate. You have conversations with them, whatever. But these kids who are their social skills, their functional skills are very, very, not what we consider
inhibited,
average, right?
Sure.
Okay, super nice kids, and I talked to them for about an hour about writing. Okay, it would be a hell of a miracle if any of them ever write something that goes on to really be appreciated by an audience outside of their family or their friends. But I talked about writing, I talked about storytelling, I did that. My goal there wasn't, I'm going to inspire these guys because they're going to become novelists or whatever like me. My goal was, and it was like a classroom of 5 or 6 people. My goal there was, let me have a neat moment with 5 or 6 people who I'm going to enjoy talking to them because they're certainly going to have a different way of looking at things than I do. They're hopefully going to get something out of hearing, somebody who, is written and published or whatever and enjoy maybe, some of the things that I have. I got a lot out of it. I got an absolute lot out of it. I spent an hour sharing, most important things I've learned that I could communicate with them. And that's it. It didn't need to be saved. It didn't need to be possible, saved for posterity. I didn't get on Twitter and tell everybody, hey, I just did this thing or whatever. Well, look at what a great guy I am.
Yeah, that's a little bit different because like in that regard, it's not like midway through you had an eye-opening epiphany of like, oh my God, I just nailed this joke that I've never been able to quite nail before. That's that. We were doing story talking and I was able to use the Star Wars trilogy to effectively communicate character development. That's fair enough. And you're right in that there exists moments that should be private and special just to the people who are there. What I'm saying is like, I feel like I had a lot of wasted bandwidth. There was a lot of great moments that are lost to history that nobody, including me, remembers because they weren't performed to a bandwidth intensive environment.
You're right. And I think that's necessary. I think that if you look at the greatest comedians, some of the greatest talents we've ever had, you look at the generation that came out of vaudeville and into TV. And you look at these people who they spent, George Burns' greatest moments were never captured. We will never know.
That is what I'm getting at, right? Is this vague sense that it's like, wow, all my best moments are being lost to memory, and memory is the most unreliable rapscallion.
But I think that sometimes this moment just exists for that moment. I think having a lot of those moments that just gives value to the other ones, and the idea that you're with a girl and you have amazing magical experience, and it's like, that's great. We'll always have Paris. That'll always be a thing. I don't need to Instagram it. I don't need to share it. I don't need to tell the world. I don't need to be anything about this awesome thing. I had this wonderful moment on stage. That's it. I learned a little bit from it. I can't go back. That gives value to things.
Agreed a million times over. However, I also just want to say more people watch Scam School in a week than watched my entire career up until Scam School. Like, I mean, it's like as far as like contacting some version of my personality with people, it's like that.
True that. But like I had watched you know, I'd watched every single David Copperfield TV special, but nothing had the impact and the magnitude of the experience of when I saw him live.
I mean, I guess that's the weird part, right? Is in order to be valuable enough to start courting mass media to get your word out or some version of your show out, you have to be good enough. But in order to be good enough, you need to have already done your time in the trenches, as Copperfield most certainly has, right? So he gets good enough and he gets these specials, and then the net effect of the specials is now he can, you know, set a tour schedule.
Yeah, I mean, they're that, but I mean, I'm just saying this, that like the 2 hours I sat there watching him live was one of the most impactful experiences of my entire life. That 2 hours being there live was more so than the TV show, more than anything else.
Having seen it, absolutely believe it.
Yeah, being 12 years old in that audience, that's it.
By the way, for me, being 28 years old and watching, or 35 years old in that audience was worth it.
I remember being 13 years old, and there was some ballerinas came to perform at my high school, and I care less about ballet, but I remember being just fascinated by this one girl. She was tall, she was live, she was beautiful, and she smiled right towards our direction. And I'm like, I see something here. I don't fully grasp this. I know, I get this. I get why people like this. I get that I don't necessarily care for it, but I understand. All of a sudden it has value to me, you know? And I think that there's different kinds of experiences. You know, I've had, you know, as performers, like I've had great, you know, been able to do like awesome TV that I had fun doing. But then I have, you know, man, there was this awesome show that I did for just 6 or 7 people, and it was, what a great time it was. No video, nothing exists.
Absolutely. No, and I could definitely back that up. Like there were college shows where I showed up, and for whatever reason, marketing went sideways and literally 9 people showed up, and it's like, you've got a decision to make. It's like, are you going to, you know, apologize for how crappy the show is going to be, or are you going to explain to these 9 people that you're about to experience a command performance? Imagine you're the Queen of England and you have hired the best in breed to come and perform for you 9 people. Side effect is 3 of you are going to come on stage 5 times to be volunteers. However, you're going to get the best experience of anyone here.
Yep.
Man, this definitely got expanded. We definitely spent 40 extra minutes with the Brian and Andrew discussing about Variety Hour.
Well, this is what will become the extra bonus part of our Patreon.
Once we have a producer.
I noticed that we lost a person on our Patreon. Like as I was looking, I just re-clicked it and it looked like, oh, we went from 560 to 559.
Yeah, you know what? That's fine. They didn't belong among us anyway.
The person that wanted the job we're giving to Nash.
He realized, like, hey, man, dude, if I got it, I ain't giving. I'm out.
I ain't getting my buck. Take that.
How's it been, Andrew?
It's been long-winded.
But I tell you, but also valuable. It's been an experience that I think will inspire a lot of people. I think there's a lot of good that came out of today. I think we touched on a lot of weird things. I think we touched on the future of space. I think we touched on...
Brian, are you trying to say that it's been really diverse?
It has been. It's been diverse. It's been strange. It's been perplexing.
It's been weird.
That too. Done. Saved. Dude, I'll tell you what, like, I know it's off brand for you and I to go on those side jags, but it's like, me at age 25 would kill to hear people speak candidly about this kind of business.
I don't, as long as there are people interested in listening, I don't mind talking about that at all. Yeah. My biggest fear in that is the thing that I don't want to project, and I'm speaking personally, just purely for my own kind of thing, is, well, guys, I figured it out. Let me tell you how it works. You know, that's, you know, the thing that,
which again, I don't know that we have a reputation for doing. However, you know,
no, we don't.
We do have a reputation for saying, well, let me tell you what it was for me. And that's like, it's weird because I don't want to give a ringing endorsement of the self-help culture, because I think in many ways it's poisonous. However, I know to me on a very personal level, it was extraordinarily important at a time when I was trying to follow my dream. By the way, what do we want to call this?
Monkey 911. Paramonkey.
Monkey 911 done.
No, I mean I'm all for like I mean I share like I read Tony Robbins and stuff and I got value out of that, certain value out of that, when he starts getting his weird dietary stuff and the other thing.
The dietary stuff. Like I remember at some point he was talking about like I physically watched a red blood cell transform into a bacteria cell. And I'm like, stop talking. Just stop. You're ruining all of this. Don't.
Yeah, and I remember like he did an expo near me, and I remember talking to this guy, one of the vendors, who's like, Tony Robbins, personal chiropractic, selling a magnetic bracelet,
Jesus.
And I was like, all right, but again, lots of people I highly respect also have some stupid ideas. I think that Capuchin primate resuscitation, CPR, that's a CPR, and I got so much out of the Peter Thiel book, and like he did a Reddit AMA, which I pulled up because it was great. They're like, oh, what would you have asked yourself or whatever, when you were 22 or whatever. And he says, when I was 22, I didn't understand the value of talking to people. And I go, wow, that sort of stuff where it's...
And that's so true because like you totally think it's like, whatever, this is the resource that just rains down on you forever is you'll always be able to meet people or whatever.
Yeah, and there's the value. Like if I was to give myself advice in the past or advice in the present is network when you don't need to. Network when you don't need to. Know lots of people, meet with people. Not every person you meet with has to be a partnership or something like that, but be the person that can find people for other people. When you want to do something like a TV show, you sometimes have just a few days to hire people. And the success or failure, what you're going to do is largely dependent upon that Rolodex about who can you get hold of, how can you get them. And it's not just the strength of relationships with people, it is the depth of relationships with people, and or the variety. And that's a thing that some of the best things I've ever been able to do, have come from, they talk about, it's who you know, but that often implies nepotism, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. It means, if, I wanted to do a project and I needed somebody who knew JavaScript, I knew you, I knew Justin, and I could say, hey guys, can we find somebody who knows JavaScript? And then, in walks Dan Dirks through the door, who now is super busy. So I need another person who knows JavaScript, by the way. I think that Jim says, isn't that like any? Yeah, every business is is knowing people. Everything is knowing people. Everything is that. And just use an example of my own personal experiences. Like, I'm used to a lot of things. I can just go do this myself. If you know collision detection and JavaScript and are familiar with it, email me at amain@gmail.com. We'll talk. I'll pay. Knowing people is key. It is, and I look at every time I step up.
That's the big betrayal. Is I remember hearing that in high school, where it's like it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I'm like, well, that's bullshit. It's like that doesn't seem fair. Also, it turns out to be exactly the truth.
Well, it's both. It's both. I think that it's I would never have got a TV show if I didn't know people in TV.
Sure.
I never would have got a TV show if I didn't have something to offer TV.
Boom. Yep.
And I didn't know I thought I had something to offer. I didn't know anybody. I've said this story a million times. I'm sick of hearing myself say it. What did I do? Closest thing to me was Orlando. Opened up an office on the lot at Universal Studios. Didn't cost anywhere near the amount of money I thought it would. And called up people who were making TV and said, I'd like to talk to you. Next thing you know, I'm talking to people who make TV and I'm telling them my ideas and they my ideas.
Well, hold on. You said you opened an office on the lot at Universal Orlando?
Told you the story.
No, I don't think I have.
Really?
No. Like to me, you always were in the like the office lot down in Margate.
No, so this was before. So I didn't know anybody. I wanted to get into TV. I had an idea for kids.
Should I record all this? Should I start it again? I don't know. I just don't want to have to tell you to tell it all over again.
Whatever you want to do.
Okay, hold on. I'm deleting the stuff. It says it'll take a minute, but I would actually
I can use the restroom while you do that.
Okay, go for it. Go for it. We'll take a short break. In fact, I'll take a break as well and get another soda. Dude, get ready. Pass the word. Freaking science about to be dropped on the live stream.
Don't go in there. I did not see the interview in theaters because part of the way I exercise my freedom is using my freedom of choice. And I didn't suspect it was going to be any better before the hacking than it would be after the hacking. I did watch Team America again, though. Hi, and welcome to the Matt Damon most boring chat there is. So I'm going to answer your question as to, is a show about balancing work life, working from home interesting? It possibly is very interesting if every show you have something sort of new and interesting. I'm a guy that doesn't balance, so.
So I walked downstairs talking about home and professional life. I walked downstairs and Penny and Josie were singing their new song. And I missed most of the intro lyrics, but the chorus was "One time dad, one time dad." I was like, I don't know that I'm a fan of this chorus.
Is it like you're constantly fearing a mutiny?
Yes, it totally
You're like
is.
a pirate captain that's like, one moment I'm gonna walk downstairs. And
yes,
they're gonna
it'll be me next time. Absolutely.
So
All right, here, 3, 2, 1, record.
So this is a story, like I've said this a lot, so I feel like every time my mouth opens to tell the story that people are like, we've heard this story.
Dude, I've never heard this story, and I've known you, what, 6, 7 years now? 7 years.
All right. So this is how Andrew got into television. I do a truncated version of certain points of chapters of my life, but nearing the end of working at the James Randi Educational Foundation, I had come to the realization or the appreciation that my goal was science education, that my goal was trying to improve the quality of that or try to add to that to try to help. How can I bring my skills as an entertainer to help this? And I had an idea for a children's educational show that was kind of like Magic meets Bill Nye, David Blaine-esque kind of thing. And it was about critical thinking.
But to be targeted to what, like the 12-year-old category?
10-year-olds go for that critical point. Use like, hey, I'm not like, it's not, here's a scientist telling you why science is cool. Like, here's a guy doing something cool that needs science to work or whatever.
Sure.
So I had, that was my goal. And I didn't even know, up until I had that, I didn't even know if I wanted to get into performing again. I'd gone through a big period of performing, then I got out of it. I made a little independent film for no money, didn't even star in it. I had somebody else star in it, which was a test of my ego to see like, okay, am I more interested in being a creator or, you know, trying to be a face? And I realized that I had to be a creator first. Maybe sometimes be a face, but it was really about creation. And that was the important thing I took from that. Then I had this idea for a TV show, and I said, okay.
And by the way, this is coming out of your so you had a career on cruise ships, and then you spent time like as your full-on day
Resorts
job.
and casinos too, Brian. It wasn't all just cruise ships.
Wait. Oh, sorry, casinos too. But
I spent more. My biggest work was actually resorts, like overseas and casinos.
Right. But my
funnier.
point is that from that you entered into the JREF and you spent how many years at the JREF pretty much as a full-time job analyzing the claims of what could be said.
And doing a lot of classroom. I took a program I had before going into classrooms teaching critical thinking that started when I was in high school, and I brought that into the JREF, and Johnny Carson helped underwrite it. And
That's
so,
amazing. By the way, just say that again slower because that's awesome.
Johnny Carson helped underwrite it. Because Randy was great friends with Johnny Carson, and you know Johnny would be like, so what are you guys doing? And Randy'd say, oh, you know, we're in high schools. Andrew's doing this program and all that. And Johnny's like, great, I'll write a check. And he's now Carson's Foundation. They underwrite the Amazing Meeting. They've done just a lot. They've continuously been a great source of support for James Randi.
I did not know that Carson's Foundation was paying cash for the TAM. That's amazing.
Yeah, to my understanding, yeah, they help support that. You look at it and you go, what are you trying to do? And I got involved in skepticism and all that because, like, I love science. I love the scientific way of looking at the world. I love critical thinking. I think that it's a positive thing. I think that, you know, you build rocket ships and computers and great entertainment when you can think critically, when you can ask questions and find the answers. So I had an idea for a show to teach critical thinking. And it came out of kind of a bit of frustration because I'd been involved in working with schools and just seeing how hard it was to get curriculum through and how trying to get teachers who many of them couldn't even articulate what critical thinking was, et cetera.
Right.
So I decided, you know, maybe an approach would be through television. Maybe if I did a TV show, because I looked at what touched me. Like, I love Bill Nye the Science Guy. I even loved the Mr. Wizard world when it was on Nickelodeon. I love those sort of 3-2-1 Contact, the Bloodhound King. Oh my God,
dude, are you kidding me? Dude, you're speaking my language right now.
Yeah, these things were great. Like Bloodhound Gang, like, dude, I'm gonna start a detective agency. These guys are doing it. I'm gonna do it. You know,
why not? Sure.
So I said, all right, you know, and I said, you know, magic's great. People love magic, and I have an approach towards magic. So I said, I want to start a show that's going to be, you know, kind of using magic to teach critical thinking and science skills. Didn't know anybody. I didn't know anybody. How do you go about and do this?
Which, by the way, for the record, spoiler alert for those of you who don't know, Andrew, of course, has written the Jessica Blackwood novels, Angel Killer. As you're describing it, I'm hearing what you're saying you wanted to do, and all I'm thinking was like, oh, yeah, he wants to do pretty much what Angel Killer did.
And then there might be other things, too. I don't know anybody in television. I don't know anything. And I didn't know what to do. I'd maybe like written a couple letters to like a public television station and probably wrote something to like TLC or something like that. Like, hey, I have an interest in a show, which is, you know, adorable. You know, that's great. Keep dreaming, boy. I met through a good friend of the James Randi Foundation, a guy named Jerry Orstrom. Jerry Orstrom's a great guy. He's a philanthropist, but he's a big science advocate, whatever. He's got me into so many interesting conferences and meetings and stuff. He knows everybody. You go to one of his parties in New York, and Bill Nye the Science Guy will be there, and you know, some Nobel Prize whizzing physicist there. Jerry's like the ultimate networker, and he's been a very, very good friend for me for years. And at a get together he put together once, I got to meet a guy who was head of a corporation, a pretty big company, right? And I said to this guy, I got along with this guy really well. I said, can you give me some advice? And he said, he'll give you the best piece of advice. And I listen, I'm one of these people, I genuinely ask for advice. I genuinely want it. I don't want like, tell me why I'm so smart. I want like, give me advice. And he said, the best piece of advice I could give you is meet with people, knock on doors. He said that when he would get resumes on his desk delivered to them, he says, I pick them up and I throw them away. When I would get my secretary would call me in and say, hey, there's somebody here who doesn't have a meeting but wants 5 minutes of your time. if I had a break or whatever, I would meet with them. It says that the person who took the initiative to go meet with me was the person who impressed me. And this is often in the case, and not just it obviously makes sense in sales. You want to hire a salesman that can sell himself, you know, but you want to hire somebody meeting everything sales. You want to meet with somebody who's pushy, who goes out there, not too pushy, but the idea that I went to go meet with you. I want this so bad, I will do this, because that's a sign of how hard they're going to work.
Right.
If they don't take any effort to try to get the job, then what are they going to go do, right? Nothing. So I took this, I said, okay, what I need to do is I need to go out there and be proactive. So the first thing I did was I went to a local public television station, stopped by there. I had some materials with me. I looked at what a pitch was supposed to look like. I had like a DVD of like 3 or 5 minutes of like this thing I shot.
By the way, do you mind sharing like how old you are or what time period this was?
This would have been maybe 10 years ago.
Okay. So around, 2004, 2005?
Yeah, around there. Maybe 2003, maybe around there.
Which
like,
is right around the time you and I first ever encountered each other.
Probably,
via email, yeah.
So I went by a local public television station, and I stopped by, and I went to the front desk, said, hey, I said, hi, my name's Andrew. I was in the area, complete lie. And I realized you guys are right here. I have some stuff I'd like to drop off with the guy who develops your program. I found out the name of the guy who develops content or whatever for them. I said, I'd love to just drop this off for so-and-so. And they go, oh, yeah, let me see if he's here.
Which,
like,
by the way, that's an important change. Like, there were 2 times I sent materials to the Tonight Show. One time I sent it to attention talent booker. But the other time I sent it attention the specific name of the guy who is in charge of the stupid human tricks, essentially, segment.
Critical difference.
Big difference.
And also, like public television station's different than, let's say, Tonight. If I showed up at the offices of the Tonight Show trying to do this, I'd get strange looks and kicked off the lot.
Sure.
Totally different situation. Sure. PBS doesn't have, but I mean, also, well, like, it depends on how it's done. If you come across professional and not crazy, and that's critical. I stopped by, I said, hey, I'm so-and-so. I didn't like, oh, I got to talk to so-and-so. I said, oh, I'm here. I just want to drop this off. And they go, oh, let me see if he's there. And they call up and say, hey, we have so-and-so here. They wanted to drop off some materials. And this guy's, oh, I'll come out and meet him. Guy comes out. I go, hey, I don't want to take up your time. My name's Andrew. I'm doing classroom exercise stuff on critical thinking. I've been working on an idea for a TV show. I just wanted to leave these materials with you. If any of it seems interest to you, just give me a call.
Right.
A few days later, says, hey, I love this. I get a call. I love this. Can you come in for a meeting? Go in for a meeting. They're interested. This public television station wants to do something with me. I'm like, oh, cool. And they said, we just met somebody who had worked on like Dora the Explorer. Would you like to, let's bring her in. So next thing you know, they want to do this project. And they're like, oh, but they said, okay, we got to find money for it. And I had actually found funding from some of these people I met through, kind of networking elsewhere. I had money for it, but then I looked at it, I stopped and we started putting together budgets, and I realized I wasn't sure that this station was really going to do the right job with it. And I could be wrong on that, but I looked at what they produced in-house, and it was not like these were people who had...
Your idea was bigger than what you had seen from them.
Well, their stuff they produced in-house did not impress me, because part of it was they would have a staff camera person who was always going to be their camera guy. It was not a competitive market. Once you got the job, you had the job. Not like in other forms of TV or media, where you're hiring outside professionals. They were not. They were doing everything in-house, and their in-house team, looked like it was public access kind of stuff. It was not. It was, and I could be wildly wrong on that, but everything I saw that they produced, I was not impressed with. And I said, man, I could go to some of the people who had offered to help me financially with this. I even started a 501c3 nonprofit, by the way.
Oh, wow.
I even had a 501c3, but I said, man, if I turn over $100,000 to this, I don't think I'm going to get something that's going to look like Bill Nye. I'm going to get something that looks like everything else they produced, which I don't think is going to lead to PBS or anybody else wanting to invest in whatever. And I went to seminars and that stuff. Sometimes I said, you know what? Maybe I need to go through, pay TV, or maybe I need to go through a different route. Maybe I need to go through production companies that actually produce really good content.
Come here. Say it.
Dinner's ready.
Oh, good. What are we having?
Apparently dinner's ready. All right, real quick. Give me 5 minutes and I'll be down. All right, so give me the short tour on what happened.
So here we're going. I'm getting right there.
All right.
I didn't know anybody. Didn't know what to do next. I did have a buddy who worked in Orlando as an editor. My buddy Ken Montgomery, who I went to high school with, one of my best friends in the world, just saw him last week. He had got a job. He worked his way as a tape op and then to an editor in post-production facilities. And one day he said to me, he said, hey, would it be helpful if we had an office on the lot at Universal Studios?
And you're like,
yeah,
I
we're
would
billionaires.
suppose.
And he's like, no. Like at the time, rent was something like $400 a month.
Are you kidding me? For just a tiny little thing?
Because they went through this boom period where they thought they're going to have all kinds of production there. And then, stars were like, nah, I don't want to work there or whatever. And it didn't work out. So there was office space. So
I mean, essentially, like you're not paying for a lot of production ability, but what you're paying for is proximity to everyone else.
You're paying for an address.
Yeah.
You're paying for an address to be on the lot. So for $400 a month, we split it. And I think he actually had credits and stuff too for like time. He did work for them where they were like, oh, they wanted to have Universal used him for some of their in-house stuff. They just wanted to have him near there. So we got this office on the lot there. And so now I had an address on a Universal Studios. I had a Universal Studios address. And so now I knew I can call up other production companies and I can say, hi, my name's Andrew Main. I'm on the lot here at Universal. I would love to come talk to you if you got a chance. And they're like, yeah, sure. And I mean, they probably would have given me those meetings anyways. I probably didn't need to have that. But certainly for me and my point of view is I got to walk in the door, not just be, I'm a magician. I was a producer. I was obviously a serious person because I had an office on the lot.
You wore the clothing of a producer, which is what matters.
I could get into, Brian, there's a whole other story about that. Oh my God.
Dude. All right.
But anyhow, I call up, there were like two big production companies that were in there and around there. And my buddy, knew enough to say, oh, this is the person who does this there. Just give them a call, whatever. But again, if you're trying to develop a show, every big production company has a development exec, and their job is to hear from you. Had I known that, I would have known, oh, just call up this person. I would have had that meeting. But I didn't know. Nobody told me this. I figured this out by paying rent, which now I don't have to do that. But anyhow,
sure.
I call up two production companies, tell them I want to talk to them. I get meetings with two. One of them says, hey, this is great. We're trying to do a thing right now for Animal Planet. Can we pay you to be in like a little mini pilot, what they call a sizzle reel? I said, sure. Nothing to do with what I want to do, but experience. I got paid. One phone call, one meeting later. Next thing you know, I'm on a shooting something that they're going to try to. It's for a pitch thing for something. It was a clever idea they had for a show. Didn't get picked up, but all of a sudden I'm already doing one pilot. Another production company says, hey, we love you. We love your ideas. We don't really want to do this kids thing right now. Would you want to do, we noticed you do shock magic and stuff like that. And I ended up doing a prank type pilot for MTV. All right. Years ago.
Sure. Back during the waning years of the punk days, do you think?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
And pre, I mean, there was other, hidden camera magic. There was an early hidden camera magic revival. I didn't want to do hidden camera magic, and I have myriad reasons for not wanting to do that kind of thing. But anyhow, next thing you know, I do a pilot for that, and my pilot was produced there. The producer they hired was Mary Jarris, and she and I got along great. That thing didn't
Holy cow, so that's how you met Mary. That's amazing.
I met Mary. So next thing you know, I didn't know anybody. Next thing I meet Mary, and Mary is a very accomplished producer. I say to Mary, I said, listen, we'll see where this thing goes. In the meanwhile, I have other ideas for TV shows. Do you want to go pitch TV? She's like, yeah, it's great. Next thing you know, I'm flying out to LA. We're taking meetings. We sold a game show to like Lionsgate, we developed other stuff. And boom, now I'm a TV producer. So that's how it happened.
Okay, but then from there, real quick, if you're going to give the 60-second summary of what happened since then, what would you say?
So what happened since then is, I learned a lot about how TV is made, how reality television's made or produced. I mean, nowhere near as much as my friends do or whatever. And I made a lot of friends. I got my A&E show because of a friendship I developed with Joke and Biagio of Joke Productions. We'd pitched some other stuff together, sold a project. They didn't go anywhere after that, but we kept in touch. And that's what happened is all the good things in my life have come from going out, making contacts for people, and also supporting them when I had no media interest in what they were doing. As they were doing shows, I liked them and I just wanted to support their shows. As Mary would get shows she was working on, I would say, hey, whatever I can do to help out. We ended up doing a series for G4 Underground, and pulled Justin that. And so it's just, it all started because I said, let me be proactive. Let me go out there. I made a comment on somebody's Facebook post today, and it may have sounded a little sarcastic, and it was this sort of like, it was like the difference between like people who do stuff and people who don't, and it was like people who do stuff make lists, people who do stuff talk about their ideas. I'm like, no, people who do stuff do stuff. Steve Jobs says real artists ship. And that's my point. It's like I know a lot of people who are clever, creative dreamers, and they're always going to be dreamers because the moment they wake up.
Yep. Dude, make product. All right, well.
Go eat dinner.
We're out of time. I got to go eat dinner. Say goodbye to everyone, Josie.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
No, wait. Okay, I love you. Bye-bye.
Me too.
So there's that. Dude, this is great. I can't believe I hadn't heard that story. Thanks, Andrew.
I've got more. I'll tell you about my first meeting with an agent next time.
Oh, yes. With an Asian or an agent?
Bye.
An agent.
An agent. Got it.
Was not Asian.
Okay.
Be a ninja.
We gotta end on that.
Be a ninja. All right, I'm gonna save this in here. I'll put the same date and I'll put bonus motivation.
Seriously, who was the one who said they knew JavaScript? Please email me, amayne@gmail.com.
Money.
Yeah, there could be money. Totally.
All right, go downstairs. Tell your mama I'm going to be right there. Amazing. Dude. God, it's so great. I absolutely adore, even though we haven't gotten paid yet for any weird things, anythings. I'm really glad that we made it a regular staple now.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, it's putting the nail in it and saying this my life. This is one of the things, the centers of my life is good. I love the show.